Good morning. Great to see everybody. My name is Betty Custer, even though my name tag says Wayne Custer. And I serve on the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church. And I am also your congregational nurse. It is my delight to welcome members, friends, and visitors this morning, whether you are here in person or joining us virtually. This is a welcoming congregation where everyone is welcome just as we each are. Our flowers this morning have been provided by Lana in memory of her father, Russell Blackburn. Thank you, Lana. In memory of your father, thank you for sharing this with us to remember him and the beauty of this arrangement. This fall, some of our worship services will and have taken place outside. We hope to be able to do this the second and third Sundays of each month through November. Outside? Okay, my point is it's almost November, and we hope that we can get outside the second and third Sundays, but weather permitting, we will need to come inside, right? Bring a chair if we're outside, wear a mask, and join us out in the beautiful Sacred Grove. All services will also be live streamed, whether they're in or outside. Okay. Our brand new UUCS Truth and Meaning Library is now open in room 6 in the RE wing. This collection of books and the bookcase that they are housed in were graciously donated to us by Jean Heddick and Cindy Turner. Thank you. Suitable for children 4th grade and up. Adults will find many of these titles interesting also. You may peruse these books in room 6 or check them out on the honor system, but there is a card to fill out. It's in the back of the book. Just fill out your name and when you're planning to return it, and put it in the basket on the shelf. There is also a full list of all books on the shelf next to the basket. Many, many thanks to Jean and Cindy. Remember that on November 20th at 3 p.m., we will hold the annual auction outside by the foyer. In front of the foyer, maybe. We are still looking for donations of items, events, and services that can be auctioned off in a variety of ways. Please check your happenings for an online form or see Lee Jenkins or Virginia McLean for a physical form if you have something to donate. Thank you. Next Sunday is October 31st. Everybody knows what that is. So we're going to celebrate Halloween and also Pride with Proud Mary Theater. Please join us as Artistic Director Sandy Staggs and soloist Deanna Earl share the history and mission of their local theater group, Proud Mary, as well as a piece from their current performance called Falsettos. That will be showing here in our sanctuary October 29th, I guess that's Friday, and the 30th, which is Saturday. Boo at the U will follow after that. Please come in costume for this joyous occasion, celebrating Pride, Halloween, All Saints, and our very own Proud Mary. Thank you for being a congregation of welcome. Thank you for caring for one another so well and for striving so hard to care for our community. Thank you for the people you help us to be. And now I would like to invite our president-elect, John Allen Jenkins, to come forward for the elevator campaign.
My mama used to call my name like that. Nothing good ever happened from that point on. But I have some good things for you today, though. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to share with you all the last elevator update I got from Fred Stoll. Fred writes, excuse me, ironically, instead of going up, all the progress so far has been downward. First, removing the wood cover to expose the 4-foot elevator pit, then boring down 14 inches in the pit through concrete floor to expose the soil beneath, then hand digging the nearly petrified soil beneath for another 14 inches, and finally pouring the concrete to create the finished sump pump pit. Next, we'll come busting up the floor inside the choir closet and removing the support beams, probably sometime this week. I'd remind everyone to exercise caution around that area, especially as that work starts becoming more visible. The elevator work may be going down, but our fundraising efforts continue to go up and up and up. We are less than $7,000 from our $170,000 goal. Thanks to the continued support of this congregation. It is this congregation's generosity that is making this elevator a reality. If you have the ability to help us cross this finish line, to contribute whatever you are moved and able to give so that we can get that thermometer in the lobby up to 100%, I'd sure appreciate it. You can contribute at uucs.org/elevator, or you can designate a gift in the plate today. Join the Balloonapalooza or give a month plus. That's a one-time pledge equal to your normally monthly giving. Every gift, big and small, gets us closer, and we are so close. On behalf of the Stewardship Chair Brandon Carter, the Board of Trustees, and President Robin Carter, we all thank you so very much, not just for the Elevator Fund, but for all that you do to make this Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg such a wonderful family to be a part of. Thank you.
Good morning. It's wonderful to see you all here. I want to add my word of thanks to all those that have preceded me. 2 words of thanks. First is gratitude for what you are willing to do in this space together. We have spent all month thinking with each other and feeling pain with each other, and sometimes laughing with each other, sometimes all of those things at once, thinking together about time and mortality. And we said it just straight out. Point blank would be an appropriate phrase a couple weeks ago. We're all going to die. And as you know, thank you for clapping. As you know, a general and expected and understandable reaction to thinking about these things is to turn and run in the other direction. Gratitude for being a place that turns around and that wants the best we're able, in whatever limited ways we're able, however flawed our perspectives are, that wants to turn around and engage reality the best we can. And however well or poorly we do it, to try again the next time too. Our spiritual and philosophical traditions tell us that when we turn around and face these things that we most want to turn away from, things begin to change in us and in our world. So thank you. And then, secondly, thank you to everyone who is contributing so much to help us do this. Just look at the number of voices we've already heard in the service, the rotation of people moving to the microphone and stepping away, and all the people who have come behind and supported them and helped them think about what to do, suggested what we should do. Already today, we have heard from 5 or 6 voices before mine, and there are more yet to come. I want to especially thank one particular voice this morning, voice of Ana Cordova. Ana has come to us from Atlanta. She has lived in the upstate and worked in the upstate, but now she is in Atlanta, and she has come back to be with us this morning and to offer a song that she can do in a way that the rest of us cannot. What a gift. Thank you for being a place where we can face reality the best we're able and do it again and again, and where we come around each other and move with each other, support each other in front of microphones and on the other side of microphones, so that we are all facing reality together and turning that reality from what we want to run from into a place we want to be. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Riley Lanier. I've been a member of this church, well, I was going to say before the dinosaur age, but I haven't really been around that long. But since 1990, and it's my pleasure to be your worship associate this morning. Those of you watching virtually can get our order of service from beneath the video and follow along with us. Today, for the chalice lighting, Kara Dowling will light the chalice while I read a Mary Oliver poem. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when time comes to let it go, let it go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ana Cordova. I'm from Colombia. So I'm not a singer by any means, but I do have a lot of things to say. Thank you to life. Thanks God for everything we have, and we have been here reunited. Thank you. So this song is called Gracias a la Vida. So it means thank you, life, for everything. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio dos luceros que cuando los abro, perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco, y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado, y en las multitudes el hombre que yo amo. martillos, turbinas, ladridos, chubascos y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido y el abecedario, con él las palabras que pienso y declaro. Madre, amigo, hermano y luz alumbrando la ruta del alma del que estoy amando. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la marcha de mis pies cansados. Con ellos anduve ciudades y charcos, playas y desiertos, montañas y llanos, y la casa tuya, tu calle, tu patio. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio el corazón que agita su marco cuando miro el fruto del cerebro humano, cuando miro al bueno tan lejos del malo, cuando miro el fondo de tus ojos claros. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la risa y me ha dado el llanto. Así yo distingo y así me quebranto los dos materiales que forman mi canto, y al canto de ustedes que es el mismo canto, y al canto de todos que es mi propio canto.
Well, I think that deserves another round of applause. It's time to greet the holy in our midst. Thank you, Jinx. Please be mindful of each other's safety boundaries during this time of COVID. Erin will play music while we mingle. And when she stops, it's time for us to stop. Take your seats and prepare ourselves for the rest of the service. Now, in the profound words of our current president, Robin Carter, let the holy chaos begin. Well, I apologize. I apparently caught Aaron off guard. But thanks for doing that. Now I would like to introduce Geraldine Mack to come up and say a few words about her family collection of art.
Well, good morning, everyone. You know, it's always such a pleasure to be back in this wonderful house among so many familiar faces and friends. And I would ask for you to do one little thing for me before I kind of reflect on the Mack collection. If you just close your eyes and bear with me for a moment. The spring rain helps the bushes bud along the garden path. The summer rain pelts the dusty leaves, a most refreshing bath. The fall rain pelts the chestnuts down upon the ground below. The winter rain, I forget. The winter rain is snow. Thank you. You know, most of you probably remember me, if you don't see me often, but I would spend time here singing on your choir. And things continue to change. And I sang that song because we are all in our different seasons of life. This season that we're in now has been a very difficult one for many of us, I'm sure. And for that, I am truly grateful to be able to stand here before you and say thank you to Scott Neely and the UUCS family. This church family has embraced what I consider to be something that most churches would not embrace, and that is the African American experience through the talents of art. And for that, I am truly grateful that you all were able to share what I consider to be our joy in our Mack collection. I would also like to thank Joyce Harrison and Jean and Garrett Snipes, who I served on that committee with them and continue to serve on that committee to bring you art here in the sanctuary. You know, art is in the eye of the beholder, and I thought about the types of art that we should bring here, and some of you have commented, and thank you for those comments. Hopefully that each time you viewed the artwork, you may have taken just a moment of time to read the bio on them. For many reasons, I say this. Art for African Americans is a story, and it's not just the history, it's the history that basically has been missed in many of our histories. And so often, as a young woman, I would visit my family's friends' homes, and they would only have this one picture of African American art, and it would be a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I always ask myself, is there not anything else that we should have, that we should embrace, that we should learn from other than Dr. Martin Luther King? So in my journey in collecting art, along with my mother-in-law, who basically pretty much started the whole art collecting for our families, is that I wanted to embrace African American art through the stories, and not stories that depict us as mammies or subservient roles or slavery, but to depict African Americans in the way that we as African Americans feel about ourselves, and the way we feel about ourselves in many different situations, whether it be love, whether it be happiness, whether it be sorrow, whether it be family. And so that's the type of art collection that we have collected among many of these artists. A couple of the artists that we have here in this collection, Charles DeSaussure and also Alan Farall, are no longer with us. They were very profound artists, and many of these artists come from the Low Country in many of the scenes. Some of you may be familiar with Jonathan Green, you may be familiar with James Denmark, and also James Conner, who is not an African American, but also chose to depict the African American experience coming up from the Bayou in Mississippi and New Orleans. So I just wanted to thank you so very much for this church family of letting us share a little bit about African American art. I've got a couple of stories I'm going to tell you briefly. Charles DeSaussure, his piece of work is the jazz musician blowing the horn. He started in Charleston, South Carolina, and he was a painter. He was a board painter. He would sign. It was signage that he did, and many of his signs are still up in Charleston. And as a little boy, he always wanted to paint, and signage of art became obsolete, and so he decided to start painting on his own. During this 40-year span, Charles DeSaussure would come down to the Low Country to the Red Piano 2 Art Gallery, for those of you who remember it. It closed last year. And he would drive his Mercedes and an old beat-up car, and it would be painted, and he would sit on the front porch, and he would paint and tell stories about his life and stories about the people that he had met in his life. And even as his life continued to decline, he continued to do art. My youngest daughter probably has one of the most profound Charles DeSaussure collections that exist, and he was someone that we followed. Also, Alan Farall, for those of you who like the black women in the hats, someone here at the church, I can't remember who it was, spoke to me and said, what I noticed differently about that piece is the mouths of those women. So art evokes different feelings in each one of us. In our home, we chose to have a generation of African American art that depicted a lot of different ways in which African Americans lived, not just the one Dr. Martin Luther King, who we all have relished and have done many, many things in thanking him for his service to civil rights. So to UUCS and Scott Neely and this congregation, I thank you all so very, very much for allowing this church to be able to witness what I consider to be a gathering of emotion in terms of how we appreciate the African American experience through the stories of art. Thank you.
And Geraldine, thank you so much for sharing a part of your family's collection with us. And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I think this is the last Sunday we'll have it up. So certainly take the opportunity to take a look at it if you haven't. I looked at it this morning and it's marvelous. Our covenant greatly informs our aspirations and actions. We say it every Sunday because it gives real meaning to how we live our lives in this church. I invite you to say it with me. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to a system of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. So now I turn your attention to this beautiful bowl of water over here, inspired by our own member, Stacy Jackson. Please come up, place a stone or shell into the bowl. The ripples go out to increase our joys and lessen our concerns in this community. People joining us on live stream are encouraged to reach out to somebody by text, calling, or sending them a thought. My lovely wife, Cynthia, will place a stone and a shell into the bowl to represent those who are joining us virtually. In addition, you're welcome to come up and place an offering in the bowl, or the bowl that's sitting here next to our chalice.
Join me in silence. When my daughter was born, I received a message in the hospital that my grandfather had gone into hospice. It was a strange experience to experience the miracle of her birth. It's an unreal experience to be present when a person is born and your own child. It's unreal. And in that same passage of time, to receive word that my grandfather was nearing the end of his life. It's hard to know what to make of that. It's so flooded with emotion and memory and symbolism without trying to make it into symbolism. What is time? And who are we in it? We've talked about cycles of time, the ways that we can feel caught in conditions that recur and that from which we cannot escape. Chronic conditions, incarceration, broken relationship, history, this pandemic itself, situations that we want to break free from, but that we continually feel caught in again and again. And the sense of despair or fatalism that cyclical nature of time can create in us. And we've talked about time as linear, with a beginning, the birth of my daughter, and an end, the death of my grandfather. And that the finitude of our lives creates an intensity of meaning. No extra symbolism required. just the fact that this, whatever this is, and whatever comes before it, and whatever may come after, this moment does not last forever. And so, just the fact of our lives, the brevity of our lives, calls us to pay attention to our lives and to make of our lives what we can. What is time? And who are we in it? Is it cycles? Is it linear? When I think about the birth of my daughter and the death of my grandfather, I think about time as both things. A cycle that moves in a linear pattern. A spiral. And I think about the seasons. They move in a circle. I'm going to get it wrong if I try to say it. Winter, spring, summer, fall. I don't know why I always want to go backwards. They move in a cycle. And one season to the next reminds us of the seasons that have come before, of their great beauty, of all that each season holds, as Geraldine has already sung for us this morning. But one season this year is not the same as a season next year. Are the rains enough? Are the floods too high? What is the snowfall, if there is a snowfall? Who is here with us? Who has left? Are the skies more blue or more gray? We live in this cycle, but it moves through time. All of our debate and wondering about climate, all of it, and all of it welcome here, is about the strangeness of being in this perpetual cycle that moves through history. And what should we do about it? And how should we live in it? A spiral of time that moves around and around, but always on. And what is the life that we will make in it? Life for ourselves and for each other and for all beings in this world. In Buddhism, the Buddha looked at this cycle of life. In his worldview, in the Ganges Plain 2,500 years ago, a perpetual cycle of suffering. Think about reincarnation as rebirth, but in the Hindu and Buddhist and Jain mindset, it's a cycle of re-death, a cycle of being caught forever in suffering and death. And so the question is, how do we get out? In staring into that cycle of suffering, the Buddha found a cycle of liberation. By looking at the very nature of reality itself, we could perceive that our existence in its finitude blows apart into nothingness. And just in the acceptance of that, we can find relief from our grasping on life and all the suffering that that brings. And strangely, when we do that work, compassion, profound compassion for all beings, develops in us. And so the Buddha proposed a philosophy, a way of living, to take the cycle of suffering and turn it into the cycle of liberation just by staring into its heart. By looking into the reality of our finitude, we could escape this cycle and help others as well through our compassion, through our beauty, through our care for each other. And generation after generation, cycling through long after the Buddha's death, followers in his path entered into this practice, looking at the cycle of suffering as a path of liberation. Until one day, some of them said, hey, wait a minute, hang on just one second. Smart guy and all, very enlightened, looks great in gold. But let's just think about this for a second. We're caught in a cycle of suffering. If we look into the cycle of suffering, we can turn it into a cycle of liberation. We can get out of it. That sounds great. And as we do this, profound compassion is developed in us for all other beings. What happens to all those other beings when we leave? If we experience liberation from this suffering that we're caught in, that's great, but what about everybody else that we're supposed to care so much about? And so, true to the Buddhist practice, by looking into this suffering deeper and deeper and deeper, not just taking it as rote doctrine or institutionalized religion or philosophy to be swallowed wholesale, but really doing the practice. If he said this works, let's try it. Turn that wheel of suffering and see if it can become liberation. And staring at it long enough, a new insight emerges that the Buddha never had. Spiritual genius doesn't end, it keeps evolving. And what these people saw was, if we're caught in a cycle of suffering, death and rebirth, and suffering and death, and we find a way out, but in the course of finding a way out, we develop profound compassion for all beings. What if we fooled with the system a little bit? What if we understood it so well that rather than getting out, we decided we'd go back in, choose to enter into the cycle of suffering, so that we can keep helping everybody else get out? Right? It's the difference between the lifeguard on the beach seeing a shark and deciding, I'm not going to go in the water, and knowing how to get everybody else out, and being willing to get in the water a little bit to get everybody else out. If we care about people so much, what if we tried to do that? If it doesn't work, what the hell? We're caught in the cycle of suffering anyway. All that we'll do is spin around one more time. It sucks, but so what? We've done it however many millions of times we've already done it. And so a whole new version of Buddhism developed, in which practitioners would make a vow, make a promise, to not become Buddhists, to stop just short, develop all of the insight and compassion that they could. But before going into the beyond, before entering into nirvana, the nothingness beyond, as Buddhism conceives of it, instead of that, the choice instead, the resolve, is to enter back in on behalf of everybody caught in the cycle until we can all be free. Until we can all be free. And they actually sound a lot more like Buddha than Buddha himself does. So profound is the insight. You don't have to believe in Buddhism. You don't have to believe in reincarnation. We've got folks in the congregation that do, and plenty that don't. That's not what this meditation is about. But that image teaches us something about this life, whatever beyond this life may be. So whatever concerns you may have about hidden messages about the great beyond, I want you just to drop them, because that's not what this is about. And what I want you to do is to look into the heart of reality, as that tradition asks us to do. Listen to this insight. When we are caught in cycles of suffering, cycles of time from which we cannot find escape, chronic conditions, pandemics, loops of history, endless oppression, we may just want to get out, and who can blame us? Who could blame us? To try to find a way out. But there is another path, and it's the decision to go back in. It's a paradox. It doesn't make sense. But the lives that are generated by the people who decide to do that are lives that shine like gold. And lives that give life to other lives caught in suffering. Think of a woman who enters into her experience and the experience of history, facing into suffering and oppression in cycles, a 500-year repeated cycle, and who calls up out of that instead art of resilience and joy and beauty to be shared with all of us. Think of the beauty of that life. Think of the physicians. I love physicians, but even more than physicians, the nurses, the therapists, the social workers, who choose over and over again to go into situations of suffering. I live with a therapist. My wife is a therapist. The thing she comes home carrying every day, I don't know how she does it. But deciding to go back in every day. And she is like gold. She is like gold. School resource workers who know this community in a way that almost none of us will ever know, go into homes of unbelievable suffering and deprivation to help kids find a future and their parents to find a future following the kids' leadership. Unbelievable. These people of gold. To choose to go back into the cycle of suffering, knowing that it will be suffering, but that when we face into reality, we may find a way through, and a way not just for ourselves, but for others as well. I was communicating once with a person who was going to lose their partner, facing the certainty of death. And I said, I'm sorry. How are you doing through this? It's hard to even know how to ask the question. And the person said, it's terrible. It's terrible. That's just reality. And I am choosing to be open and curious, to be as present as I can be. When your time comes to die, when your time comes to die, and I'm really sorry, but it comes. Wouldn't you want the person by your side to be a person open, curious, present to the reality of their grief and yours, and right there with you? Right there with you. To find a way through.
Summertime has turned the star wheel. Autumn is upon us. Summertime has turned the star wheel. Autumn is upon us. Sweet the angling sun, sweet upon the air the smell of blue mist rising. Summertime has turned the star wheel. Autumn is upon us. Glorious the trees, glorious the sight of pressed leaves falling, falling. Summertime has turned the star wheel. Autumn is upon us. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel. Winter is upon us. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel. Winter is upon us. Gray the windy storms, cold upon our cheeks. The wet rain glistens, glistens. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel. Winter is upon us. Leaping is the fire, golden in the glass. The cider glows like amber. Autumn cold has turned the star wheel. Winter is upon us. Winter rains have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Winter rains have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Sharp the smell of love bursting in our eyes. The turrets of the tulip. Winter rains have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Greening is the grass, soft upon our brows. The sunlight warms caresses. Winter rains have turned the star wheel. Springtime is upon us. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Gliding o'er the hawks, hovering above the hot and yellow hillside. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Crickets in the night, chirping in our ears. The sound of moonlit music. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us.
As Kara extinguishes the chalice, I'll read another poem by Mary Oliver, who I basically consider a friend of the congregation because we utilize her poetry so much, and it's wonderful. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaw back and forth instead of up and down. Now she lifts her pale forearms thoroughly to wash her face. Now she straps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to kneel in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Face in. Again and again and again. Spiraling through our lives, however long or short they are. Until we are all free.